Hey, what's up, everyone? Ryan Kramer with Frisbee here. I'm here with the lovely Chelsea Cohen of So Stocked by Carbon 6. Thank you for tuning in, whether you're watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, all the social platforms where we love to go and talk and engage with our audience. We're talking about everyone's favorite, at least ours, I should say, Chelsea. Our favorite topic is inventory limits, what we do best. If you're new to the space here at Frisbee, we're formerly First for Shipping. We're helping sellers grow internationally and help them move their brands to different marketplaces and through the Amazon platform. Chelsea, and if you want to kind of introduce yourself quickly, if people haven't heard of So Stocked / Carbon 6, and then we can start from there.
Sure. So I've been selling on Amazon since 2014 and started looking at, like, say, 2018, my profitability and what were those biggest drags on the profit. Stockouts and overstocking were those big drags, and I needed to get inventory management under control. So looked for different softwares. Nothing was working. Talked to the community. Everyone said the same thing. Nothing works. We're back to spreadsheets. And, I saw that as an opportunity being an entrepreneur. Met my business partner, who was a serial software builder, SaaS builder. And we partnered to create a company called So Stocked, an inventory management software that launched in 2019. So since 2018, I've really been very immersed in inventory management, teaching about best practices for inventory management, and big focus on profitability. How do we use inventory management to increase profitability, and how do we use inventory management to better improve cash flow so that we can properly scale? So that's been kind of my focus. One of those weird people that likes to talk about the boring subjects and figure out ways to explain to people why it actually becomes very, very sexy, because it's those boring things that make you a lot of money long term.
That's the thing. It's like the non-sexy subjects of Amazon actually would make people money. And I know you were talking about this, or the people at Carbon 6 were talking about this. It's the little things that make the money. It's not it's not the flashy stuff like the products. The products are important, but it's the little things that incrementally build your brand. And especially in the timing of everything, when somebody throws you a curveball, somebody being Amazon, and the limits of which how much you can send into a fulfillment center or warehouse at any given time. It's not traditional, and you have to constantly be up to date. And that's why we're here today, to ask questions, to talk about what we're hearing and from customers, but also seeing from data, which is super important, and going from there. Awesome. So first and foremost, Chelsea, we were kind of alluded to this kind of being a factor back in 2021. It was a factor, kind of came out of nowhere. 2021, people's inventories were cut in half, even like 60%. We saw, lots of people really struggle and have to keep up with the volume. So let's kind of set the scene, if you will. Is there learnings that we can take from 2021 that kind of apply to today in your mind?
I mean, it's the same types of things that we're seeing: inventory management, and needing to increase the speed or the frequency with which you turn over inventory, focusing on sell-through. That is, it's all more of the same. It's all inventory management best practices that, some people learned from 2021. Some people may have stopped doing those things, those inventory control things within their business when the restock limits went away, because we thought, okay, these are going away. I actually thought the first 2 quarters, I thought, guys, this could stay, or this could come back at any time. They could bring it back for Prime Day. They could bring it back, for the holidays. But Amazon purchased so much warehouse space, they started giving it away to Shopify sellers and non-Amazon sellers. So I thought, okay, by the beginning of Q3, I was like, okay, they're obviously not going to have those problems, so we should be okay with restock limits. And then that turned out not to be the case. They brought it back, and they brought it back at the same time that they released a program that actually allows you to waive restock limits. Coincidence? I think not. But that was an interesting. I was asked what's in it for Amazon, and I think that could be a piece of it is that Amazon has a program that allows you to waive restock limits, which didn't exist until that program was pushed.
Right. We're not here to be cynical. We're here to kind of the facts were presented a
Yeah.
day later and the announcements were a day later. For those who are curious what we're talking about, I'm going to put an article if you want to. It's on our, it was written by the awesome team at Carbon 6, but also Chelsea and her Stock team came directly from her. So I call it the Bible of inventory limits and what they saw. It was back in August 29th and 30th, around that time frame, when both were right before Q4. What were we expecting? And it kind of set the scene, I think, for today. But also, I know that there's larger scale things that are happening here. So before we go into that, the AWD program or the distribution channel, I heard a very interesting thing that because of everyone's the ocean freight, the troubles trying to get inventory in for Q4 last year, a lot of people stocked up ahead of time. They then sales velocities start to take a downward turn. I say downward turn, they weren't COVID peak bumped sales. So a lot of big retail stores, Targets, the Walmarts, the Best Buys, they were actually sitting on inventory because they overbought in Q4 of 2021. Kind of residually happened in Q1, Q2 of this season. So because of the excess in inventory that they had, they actually are pushing a lot of their inventory in what would be naturally open spaces in Amazon distribution channels and third-party warehouses. So a lot of warehouses are actually packed to the brim. Now I can't confirm that. It's not every single piece of warehouse is completely 100% full, but a lot more is. So does that have any, do the external retail factors here have an effect on Amazon and what they're doing with limitations?
I mean, that, that's possible. I mean, there's conflicting data because in terms of the restock limits, you think of, okay, does Amazon have the space allotted? I think that honestly, it's less about space and more about labor. They overextended themselves. That's first and foremost. They're selling off warehouses. But then they're purchasing some mega warehouses, which is interesting. They've got about 3 or 4 mega warehouses that they are setting up. They're not ready yet. They've recently purchased them, but they've shut down some warehouses. They had a hiring freeze, and then they made an announcement about laying off a bunch of people right before
10,000 jobs, yeah.
Which is crazy. So I think that a big portion of that is, to control that side of things. They have a lot of pressure to become profitable. They reported the first quarter of this year, their first down quarter since 2015. And it was, I think, $3.8 billion in loss for that quarter. And in that quarter, $6 billion was spent on logistics and warehousing. So, you start to see, okay, they've got a lot of pressure from the shareholders to increase profit, and this could be a portion of that aspect of that. They're, all of those things factoring in, I think, less so than what's happening with retail. But there's what's happened with retail in terms of everything slowing down is also happening with Amazon sellers. And, we had the Prime early access, which was kind of fizzled. It wasn't a big
as big or as a scale, right?
Yeah.
If people are listening to this and you weren't a part of that, it's something that you should have been aware of if you're an Amazon seller. But if you're an e-commerce seller out there listening to this after the fact and you've listened and you're just beginning your Amazon or e-commerce journey, it's something that Amazon tweaked. It's kind of pumping artificial juice into an ecosystem that, hey, maybe don't call it a second Prime Day, call it early access to Q4, because people are shopping earlier. The concept makes sense. There was no real lead up to it where we all know, hey, Prime Day generally comes in July or June, July timeframe of every year. It's kind of that dead period. People prep for it. So in that capacity, it's very fascinating because, like you, I follow trends, and the trends kind of the data follow. You follow the data. You look at the things of building capacities. You're looking at new inventory and new warehouses being built. Amazon had a lot of contracts that they canceled throughout the year, which rightfully so. If they're slowing down and they have all this excess space, why build more? You're building something that's equity that you're putting into it, and if you're not going to utilize it, it's not going to be profitable, and you'd come out on top. So they cancel a lot of contracts, a lot of inventory in warehouses that were, just around the world in general, were canceled. So that being said, it really paints that picture of, okay, there is more opportunity to put more inventory in there. You would think like it's leading towards, they have the space, they have the capacity, they're not needing more space, they're not buttoned to the brim.
Yeah.
Which leads us to what, Q4, August 29th, 30th, they make these announcements, the updated restock limits to allow all their sellers for at least 4 months of inventory in FBA. That is the announcement on August 29th. And again, the link we put here, if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, the awesome team at Carbon 6 put together this awesome blog. Check it out. It's on the Frisbee website, on our blog. But everything that is listed in there, it makes it, you think like leveling the playing field. Everyone gets this opportunity, right? I have 4 months of inventory. That means I can put in as much as I want. But it's it's artificial. I feel like when you were looking across the board, all of a sudden you started to hear bigger sellers say, my inventory limit's got a third and half by 75%. All of a sudden it started to see big time people helping Amazon and driving sales. They all of a sudden were affected in a negative way. What is that taking from the rich and giving to the needy, where the needy doesn't even need it? Like what do you think about those kinds of situations?
Yeah, I mean, what Amazon says and what actually happens, we've found to be two completely different things. It's, I don't know exactly what these guys, what their IPI score is probably fine, but were they good at inventory management? Like, I don't know what that looks like for those sellers, because I also have heard sellers who have said, you know what, I've kept my IPI score above 600. I've been really focused on inventory management since the beginning of the year, and I don't have problems with sending inventory in. So it may be more geared towards, the fact that people maybe not keeping as good as of a control on their sell-through rate. And sell-through rate is the number one factor for Amazon. And one thing that should be noted is that, you want to be selling your turning that inventory over. So Amazon's looking at how much you've sold in the last 90 days, and then how much you have held. So it's possible that some of these guys who are having some trouble, maybe they sent in a bunch of inventory for early access and it didn't move, and that's
Right.
going to negatively affect the sell-through. The other thing to look at is unfulfillable inventory and stranded inventory and shipments that you're not using, old shipments. All of those things are what we've seen is those are factored into your sell-through rate. Amazon's definition excludes that, but what we've seen over time is that it's part of utilization. When you're looking at restock limits and you're looking at what you can send in, it's part of utilization, and we're finding that the math can pan out to it being part of sell-through. If you look at, hey, I should have X number of sell-through based on the Amazon definition, and that doesn't tend to be the case. So those are just various factors that I don't know if those are being looked at. I don't know if some of these sellers maybe have been a little bit more aggressive in what inventory they've sent in, and that their sell-through rate is negatively affected because Amazon is not, even though they say 4 months of inventory, not really looking at just, how much inventory do you need, but also, are you going to be able to turn it over, or do you have a tendency to overstock?
Right. So in that capacity, when you announce 4 months of inventory for everyone, is that something that their calculations just potentially were wrong, in that a lot of people try to push a lot of inventory in? Because that's the beginning of Q4. A lot of people are constantly already going to push, but maybe that was something that, if I was quicker to get my inventory in, again, we know the algorithm a lot. From the eyes of Frisbee, we know that Amazon rewards smaller shipments more frequently. It's just part of the algorithm, like you mentioned. What their IPI limit or the score is, how often you're sending in shipments. Is it something where a lot of people threw it in all at once because of those limits, maybe either exponentially grew, or a lot of people just it decreased, and once it went up or down, you just pushed a lot and just hopefully magically it came. Is that something that really backfired on Amazon potentially?
I mean, I think that's that's a portion of it, and some people were fairly smart about that, and that they got some inventory in, and then the limits dropped again, but their inventory was already in there, and that could also negatively affect them though, because if they weren't strategic enough, if they got inventory and that was slower sellers and it blocked their inventory that were their best sellers, that could have a negative impact on them, because we do have people who now they are over limit and they can't send anything in until they sell through and get to being below limit, based not on what their limit was when they sent the inventory in, but when we had another reset, so let's say, I think it was like 3 weeks ago or something like that, we had another reset, and so people have that negative impact. And then you're also you're coming into the holiday season where your sales, is Amazon looking at past sales for this last, say 4 months or 3 months? What are they looking at past sales, for this last 3 months? Are they looking at what you sold last year? And maybe you've launched more products and you need more, what exactly are they looking at when they say 4 months? 4 months in which direction, based on what data? So that's where we get into, okay, 4 months, but what does that mean? How are you gauging what I need for the next 4 months?
So why isn't that not more insightful? Because you would think, I mean, the data would point to one way or another. You would want sellers to be aware of how to optimize in theory, instead of causing issues for more Amazon, warehousing issues. If it's too much inventory, if that's truly the problem, why not be more clear on which way this is? And then all of a sudden either cutting, not explaining when things might change, because a lot of people are seeing things go up magically all of a sudden, go down. There's no real clear rhyme or reason. And I get it, this is the Amazon world that we live in. Not everything is explained in black and white. It's a gray area we constantly are living in. Let's put this in a couple different ways. Who are the people who are not being affected right now that you're seeing?
People who have really focused on their inventory control and their sell-through throughout the year, avoiding stockouts, improving sell-through, reducing your overstock, focusing on liquidation. What do I need to liquidate? What do I need to boost in sales? Turning over inventory faster, smaller orders more frequently. The people who I have talked to who have said, I don't have problems with restock limits. My restock limits are fine for what I need, which is shocking because most people are not in that boat. And when you ask them, well, why is that? They say, I've been focused on inventory and keeping my inventory under control. And that's been a real focus for me this year. I've been focused on my IPI score. I've been focused on, those different aspects of my business. And that tends to be the common denominator. If you have been planning for this over the past several months, you've been planning on having really good inventory management, the result has tended to be, for some people, that they do have less trouble with restock limits.
Right. And we see, obviously, with all of our customers who are sending in, I think a lot of the pushback comes when it comes to anything above small parcel, anything palletized or less than truckload or full truckload.
Yeah.
You're seeing now that just the traditional pushback in terms of being able to schedule and put inventory into a warehouse, which is 3-4 weeks out, which is very frustrating for sellers. It's a quick turnaround time, but because of all this excess inventory, you're just sitting on it. And is there a strategy that people can implement now to maybe like improve it, help? We're 6-7 weeks out in terms of the final Q4 season.
Yeah.
What can people do today in order to improve and kind of go into that last part of the quarter?
Yeah, I think right now we're kind of beyond the point of saying, you should have done X, Y, and Z for better inventory control. Now it's, how do you get inventory in as fast as possible?
Yeah.
And that's working with companies, like Frisbee. sometimes it is switching to small parcel, having live unloads, right? Small parcel is live unload by nature, right? And
Right.
live unload basically just means they're not dropping the trailer and leaving.
We're not filling no parking lot here.
Exactly. You're not leaving your inventory in a parking lot to get lost until after Christmas, like happened in my 2015 part of my Amazon journey. You are when your inventory arrives, when it is delivered, within the span of the next day or two, it generally is checked in, because it's going directly into the warehouse. And so you've got a bunch of boxes sitting there. They have to scan them in, and you basically are cutting the line from all of these other trailers that are sitting there waiting to be opened when someone gets around to it. So live unload, that's a big, whether it's small parcel delivery, or if you can manage to get that with less than truckload or full truckload, sometimes you would want to talk to your 3PL, your freight forwarder, and ask them, how can I get live unload? Are you working with companies that will do live unload, palletized live unload?
Absolutely. Is this something that you've seen just issue for US marketplace? Because we have international sellers all over. This is something that is it unique to marketplace, or is it unique by country? Is this something that as an Amazon, ecosystem that we're going to continuously see over and over again in Q4?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard much about it being different in other places except for Canada.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot about Canada, and Canada is for people who do have inventory actually in Canada, and they're not doing the North America Remote Fulfillment Program, which tends to be more successful for sellers when they do have inventory in Canada, and so that's why sellers like to put inventory into Canada. The restrictions are a lot higher, so they have a lot more restrictions, a lot less inventory that they can put in, and so there's even more difficulty with inventory in Canadian warehouses than they were back in the days of COVID. They were shutting down a lot more warehouses a lot more frequently there as well.
Yeah, they had to miss out on a couple of Prime days, if I remember correctly, that were in October, and just because of COVID shutting down a lot of warehouses, they just had to have their own Prime Day on their own, which is sad, because it's an ecosystem. And again, I think a lot of people miss the notion that this is why I love being in this kind of ecosystem, is you can have the perfect PPC, the perfect listing, all of a sudden, if you don't have your inventory system, and then again, the system is an ecosystem, it's constantly living and breathing, things are dying everywhere, you're spritzing it with water all the time, please live. If anything in that ecosystem dies at all, that is something that will just completely tank all your efforts, and the devastation to come back from that is it's completely difficult to do, and it's costly, and it's you all for naught, essentially. If you run out of inventory, you've just completely shot yourself in the foot and lost I won't say millions, thousands of dollars, if not tens of thousands of dollars, in just restock alone. But
exactly.
So all this being said, there's a lot of things that are popping up. A lot of people are trying to understand. You can file a claim with within Seller Central, right? You can say, hey, can I get my inventory requested? Is that something you suggest to sellers to consistently do? How are you navigating sellers that are working with like Restock, or trying to get their limits increased as much as they can before the rest of the year?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that could be done. I'm not hearing a lot this year about it actually working. If you went to sostock.com/restock, we keep things updated. And this time last year, actually a little bit right before fourth quarter, there was a way to simply email and say, hey, I would like to increase my restock limits because I'm selling on, I'm doing remote, I'm selling multi-channel fulfillment, so Shopify and that type of thing. And you could email and say, can you increase my limits? And this was third quarter, and it would happen. And some people saw their limits increase by, 100%, 50%. And that was something that was very effective for some sellers. As far as now, that's not, I'm not hearing a lot of success, in that, but it's worth a try. It's not like you're going to get penalized for asking about that, for sending an email for that. The other things that could be used, though, we mentioned Amazon warehousing and distribution. If you have been invited to this program, because it is a new program and you have to be invited, you can check your email. You can search invite or invitation or Amazon warehousing or distribution and see if you have been invited. It's basically Amazon saying, we want to be your 3PL. We want to fulfill for you and replace your 3PL. I would not replace my 3PL. I would supplement, because Amazon, if you're part of this program, they will send inventory and it waives that restock limit. So you can always send things in. And we've even confirmed that even if you're over limit, they'll send inventory in. They won't let you stock out. Even if you're over limit for your general restock limits, they will allow the inventory from warehousing and distribution to go into Amazon.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard from multiple people in the 3PL business. Again, test it, see if it's right for you. But there are pros and cons, right? Of like inventory, just quality checks and things like that. If Amazon has hands on everything, and you don't have that insight as a seller, like I know sellers who like to have control over the process and like to check in on their children and see how everything is.
Yeah.
We like to know that things are going to be taken care of. There's pros and cons. I linked out to that program that we talked about, Amazon, new Amazon warehousing and distribution program. Check it out, see if it makes sense. Talk to your 3PL if it makes sense for you. I think it's more information empowers you as a seller, as an Amazon seller in an e-commerce business to grow. But that being said, what are we excited? Are we kind of skeptical? Do we think Q4 is going to be at, above, below, maybe last year? What's kind of all this forecasting to in our final words?
Yeah. As far as forecasting or as far as sales, are we kind of talking about like performance of?
Let's talk about. I mean, I'm sales. I'm curious. Like, are you guys seeing velocities just as good, if not better? Because I know retail sales picking back up actually pretty strong of late. Is this going to affect like e-commerce and Q4 numbers for Amazon sellers? Do you think?
I think that we will see. I don't think that we'll see the devastation that's kind of been advertised by economists talking about inflation. I don't think that it's really hit home. I don't think the inflation is really affecting us nearly as strongly. The pre-Black Friday stuff has been interesting. The pre-Black Friday stuff started very, very early. They had, Amazon did their Prime, their early Prime. Walmart, Target, they're all doing the pre-Black Friday. So it's kind of like that beginning of a slow burn, but it's, I think, starting to pick up. Not sure if it's going to be as successful as last year, because e-commerce in general has lost some of its market share to the brick and mortar, and more people are going out to brick and mortar. So maybe not as successful, but I think still going strong. I don't think that the inflation in the U.S. is going to affect it nearly as much as they've liked to kind of paint the picture.
Well, I'm glad. Like, obviously, you're here to help make those numbers, more of a reality, to like just point people in the data direction. Just final words, Chelsea. I know we're at that half an hour time. I think this is a perfect way. How can people get in touch with you? Learn more about Stock/Carbon6. What are those resources they can point to?
Yeah, so stock.com/connect is where you can find our socials, where you can find me, demo account. We also have a bunch of free tools there, which is really some of those are really helpful. And then Carbon6 would be carbon6.io, and you can learn about all of the different tools that Carbon6 has. It's really creating an ecosystem, and not just that, but also education. One of the reasons that I came on board Carbon6 was just the vision of the community and of bringing the best minds together to not only start to create systems and education for sellers, and to create a community of people who were being supported, but also to breathe that depth of knowledge into the tools, which has been extremely valuable. And how we grew Stocked was working with other sellers to make the tool better. So that's the approach that we're taking with Carbon6, and what you'll be seeing in the coming months of the new year.
Awesome. And I put that in the, if you're looking at this post live session, I know a lot of people are busy with the time, go to carbon6.io. I also have a really cool Carbon 6 t-shirt. It's right next to my thing. I just never have put it on yet, but it's pretty cool. New swag and rebranding. The team over there is fantastic. You know, a lot of faces like Chelsea, Tim Jordan's, the the alleys of new people that you recognize in the thought leadership space that are exciting. And we're really Dana and I talked to with earlier this week. There's just a lot of cool stuff that
Vanessa Hung,
check out. Vanessa Hung, exactly. Everyone, and you're doing a webinar, I believe, later today about profitability too. So lots of cool stuff happening on.
Yeah, actually, I think that's next. They moved it to next week, the 22nd.
I got an email about it today. So if you're not signed up for this stuff, whatever it is, I don't know. I'm in marketing. What do I know?
I would like to mention one more thing, because this is a live thing. We're throwing a party, and so I wanted to let people know it's been a labor of love for me. I'm definitely a Christmas person, and wanted to put together a party that did not require us to wear high heels and cocktail dresses.
Thank God, I hate that.
I know, exactly. We sit in front of our computer all day wearing, normal clothes, and then we have to go dress up for all of these parties.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's an ugly sweater party, and it's in Austin on the 14th at the San Jack Saloon. So we rented out the entire saloon, the upstairs, the downstairs, live music, ugly sweater contest. There's some fun, quirky games that we will be playing, and it'll just be that party that you wish that you could go to, and now
now you can.
Is
there a link to that? Where can people sign up, Chelsea?
Yeah, so it's at sellermeetup.com, and it's we're putting it together with Amy Weiss from San Antonio. I'm in Austin, so it's a Texas thing, wanting to really put Texas on the map and say, hey, we're here, and see how we do it Texas style. It's also co-hosted by Ecom Cooperative, and Carbon 6 is the lead sponsor, but we also have some tactical logistics sponsoring, as well as Seller Basics.
Absolutely, lots of great names there. If you're in the Texas area, little known fact: what Texas is, fourth, fifth largest Amazon seller community right now in the United States. I think it's up there. It's definitely top 10. But there's a lot of growth in there. A lot of agencies, a lot of great tech. Go ahead and check it out if you're in the available. Want to have a great time? Go ahead and check it out at sellermeetup.com. Chelsea, thank you so much. I know I took more than half an hour of your time. Super important that we talk about this. Thanks for hopping on. Hopefully we're not talking about too many negatives next time. We're talking in the same space together. But hey, I appreciate your insights and valuable data and thoughts on the matter. So thank you so much for hopping on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone.